Hello, everyone. It's Gordon Cossey, as always, coming to you completely live and unscripted tonight. It is, or tonight, or this morning, take your pick. It's 3:23 a.m. on the 17th of August, 2023. And as always, I've got Candy. Come up. I see I have someone watching. You're welcome to say hi. All right, we'll get Candy taken care of. Shake a pop. Lay down. Speak. There we go. She's chuffing more than speaking. Ruff. A bit of a heavy topic tonight, and as I say, I'm completely live and unscripted. I haven't written anything out. Want to talk about censorship, and something happened just within the last hour or so that was eye-opening. As you may or may not know, I co-host a podcast with a friend of mine down in the US, down in North Carolina, Mark. And Mark it's called the Wisdom and Knowledge 5 podcast. I don't know where he got the number 5 from. It doesn't matter. What matters to me is the content more than the labeling, branding. We've had some compelling guests on. We had Dr. Robert Malone, and that video, that interview, over an hour long, is available here on YouTube. As well as other alternative channels like, and I'm not sure I'm allowed to say this name, so it rhymes with Kit Mute, or it rhymes with Bit. It starts Bit, and then the next word is shoot, CHUTE, and we've had Robert Malone, we've had Jason Christoph, we've had some other individuals on, and we just had one on, a person with whom I was not familiar, and her name is Dr. Lorraine Day. And I might have come across her 30, 40 years ago during the AIDS epidemic, because she became quite a contrarian voice during that time. If I did encounter her, if I saw her when she was interviewed on 60 Minutes, when it came on, I'd forgotten it. Anyway, the woman's credentials are beyond dispute. Just give you an idea, she was 15 years on the faculty at the University of California, San Francisco School of Medicine as an associate professor and vice chairman of the Department of Orthopedic Surgery. She was Chief of Orthopedic Surgery at San Francisco General Hospital. She's lectured extensively throughout the U.S., and as I mentioned, she's been on 60 Minutes. You can actually still find that. I don't think you can find it here on YouTube, but I have watched it on that alternative channel I just mentioned, Nightline, CNN Crossfire, Oprah Winfrey, Larry King Live, 700 Club, because she's also a professing Christian, so hence the 700 Club. And she has views, opinions, strong opinions that often contradict what I will term the narrative. We are so often presented with, and I've talked about this extensively, how we are programmed what to think, what to believe, and even how to feel. And Dr. Day, her views, thoughts, opinions often run completely counter to that which we are programmed to think, believe, and feel. And in my world, being what I refer to as a classic liberal, not the new age, not the liberal the way it's been turned upside down in this crazy world that we're living in. Classic liberalism believes in free speech and the ability to express thoughts, views, and opinions, even and most importantly, when those thoughts, views, and opinions are perhaps unpopular or counter narrative. And at any rate, the interview we did with Dr. Day, we did it on Tuesday. We had wanted to do it over Zoom. However, Dr. Day, for whatever reason, is unable on her end to make Zoom work. It was causing too many problems. So ultimately, we ended up doing the video using Skype. And even with Skype, we weren't able to get the video portion working. So instead, we just had audio. We had Mark and I, our videos were working. Hers wasn't, but we had her audio, and that was fine. It took a while to publish because Skype is a little more problematic. I don't handle the technical side of things. Mark takes care of 99% of that stuff. He's very good at it. And it did not get published until late afternoon, early evening Wednesday. And Mark published it to the YouTube channel, Wisdom and Knowledge 5. And it was up, and I listened to it again just to see, it's one thing when you're actively involved in the podcast, and then it's another thing to step back and take a look and see what it sounded like, looked like. And I had no issues with it. And I would like to say surprisingly, but I'm not overly surprised given some of the opinions and views she expressed. YouTube took the video down for violating community standards or whatever. So I'm not going to talk too much about what she said. However, I had shared that to my Facebook page. I'd shared that video, and now anyone clicking on it would see not available. And so in the comments to that post, what I did was I wanted to share the alternative link where you could still see it. And I got a message that said, quote, and I've cut and pasted it down below. Where is it? This can't be shared. This post can't be shared. And it said, in response to Canadian government legislation, news content can't be shared. Well, this isn't news content. This is a cheesy podcast. And I can't share it. However, I can share YouTube videos, but I can't share this bit and then followed by the word shoot, C-H-U-T-E. Why can I share a YouTube video, but I can't share one from this alternative platform? And, well, as we know, YouTube censors. YouTube removes content based on this I'm trying to think of the right word, under this, guise of community standards. And we're keeping you safe. Big Brother will keep you safe from ideas, thoughts, and opinions. That's a scary, scary notion. And unfortunately, sadly, in today's world, in 2023, and certainly this took over to a much greater extent from 2020 forward, when the world was shut down and everyone was forced on, was isolating and sheltering in place, and social interaction moved online. Bible studies would be conducted over Zoom, worship services over Zoom, classrooms over Zoom. Everything became digitalized. This became the mode of communication, the mode of sharing, the mode of the here's a word that came out. There's a word that came out in the podcast, ecclesia. Dr. Day pronounces it ecclesia. I pronounce it ecclesia. And it's a biblical word. And it is most often, perhaps always, but it's often translated in the Bible as church. But the word in the Greek, when it was written in the Gospels, is translated, or the original Greek word is ecclesia. And ecclesia, the definition I've come across, is the public square. Dr. Day refers to ecclesia or ecclesia as kind of the mob mentality. It's kind of the group think. And there's a passage in the Bible that many will be familiar with. Certainly Roman Catholics are very familiar with it, because a lot of it is this passage is often used as justification to paint the Roman church as the church, as God's having given them authority, so to speak. And it's the passage outside of Caesarea Philippi, which I often mispronounce as Caesar Philippi. It's Caesarea Philippi. And Jesus is outside of Caesarea Philippi with his disciples. And he says to his disciples, "Who do men say that I am?" And they say, well, some say you're John the Baptist resurrected. Some say you're Elijah. Some say you're this. Some say you're that. And then Jesus asks his disciples, he says, okay, who do you say I am? At which point Peter says, you are the Christ. You are the Son of the living God. And then Jesus says to Peter, you did not come up with that answer on your own. It was revealed to you by my Father in heaven. And he says, and your name is Peter. Peter can mean rock, stone. Dr. Day translates it as rolling stone or moving stone. And then he says, on this rock, and it's interesting, if you look at a physical representation of Caesarea Philippi, it's a city built on a rock, and there's a large public square. And he says, on this rock, I will build my ecclesia. And if you translate that as public square, or, where everyone's talking and sharing ideas, takes on a different connotation. It takes away authority, it takes away the power, it takes away the prestige of a political, what ultimately churches end up for good. Well, it's not for good. Churches end up being political, always. In my experience, I've never once been involved with a church that did not have politics involved in it. There are degrees. Some are more political than others. Some are more, but politics, unfortunately, it's just an unfortunate reality of the human condition, is that we are political creatures. We're tribal, and people like to advance agendas, and they like prestige. Anyway, but what's concerning to me is that as we move forward into this great reset agenda, the ability of those orchestrating this agenda the ability to control the narrative, to control what people think, believe, is of paramount importance. And now I see the hammer coming down harder. The hammer is coming down. And I think there is a tendency to normalize things and to not attach as much significance to something that should have significance attached to it. And so, oh, well, you had a video taken down and you can't share. And Dr. Day is having her rights restricted. Her ability to inject her voice into the public discourse is being stepped on. And, oh, well. But it gets back to that famous poem that came out during World War II, or shortly thereafter. The famous poem where that goes paraphrasing something to the effect of, first they went after the communists. But I wasn't a communist, so I didn't speak out. Then they went after the socialists, but I wasn't a socialist, so I didn't speak out. Then they went after the trade unionists, but I wasn't a trade unionist, so I didn't speak out. Then they went after the Jews, but I wasn't Jewish, so I didn't speak out. And then they came after me, and there was nobody left to speak out. And I think a voice, it's occurred to me that I've expressed some thoughts, views, and opinions on here that certainly run counter narrative. And I have had videos taken down. That's why I tend to be somewhat careful. YouTube is a wonderful platform because it's so ubiquitous. Everyone uses it. It's everywhere. It's on news feeds, news organizations. They publish their content, their video content to YouTube. These alternative channels, be they, Bit whatever, or Rum whatever, or Odyssey, or all these alternatives, don't have the same, they are not as firmly entrenched in the public as being part of this public square as YouTube is. And so being able to put my thoughts, views, opinions out on this platform, if you're looking to inject yourself into the public discourse, this is the best avenue. It's like if I'm driving from where I live to Montreal, the best way to get there is on the 401. That will get you there, the most fast and efficient way. But there are alternatives, but they're not as effective. They're not as efficient. And while I have had videos taken down, there are others that haven't been, others where I have expressed thoughts, views that are counter narrative, and they have stayed up. However, I've said it many times, my voice, I'm a fart in a hurricane. I'm a voice in the wilderness. I'm like, it's like I'm standing in front of the speakers at an AC/DC concert, sharing what I view, my opinion of what truth is, but I'm doing it in front of the speakers at an AC/DC concert. You got to be standing right next to me to hear me. That's me. Dr. Lorraine Day is a little different. She's in her 80s now. Her mental acuity does not appear to have diminished one iota, her age notwithstanding. She sounds as sharp as she ever has. She sounds now like she did back in that late 80s, early 90s interview that I saw, because I rewatched it when she was on 60 Minutes. And again, you can view that. She has her own website, and her website is Dr. Day, DRDAY, drday.com. And there's a link there. You can see the videos that she has put out. You can click interviews with Dr. Day, and there's flattening the curve, question mark. God says there are no airborne diseases, and countless others. She hasn't uploaded the one that Mark and I did yet. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. Neither here nor there. But she's a person I think people should listen to. And I'm not saying she's right. I'm not saying that she is right. Each individual must take in the content on their own and then chew over it and come to their own conclusions. But in an authoritarian style system, the state wants to dictate what you think, what you believe, and again, as I often say, even how you feel. And this is, we hear these words, this is dangerous for our democracy. The sharing of thoughts, views, and opinions that run counter to the narrative are dangerous. They don't frame it exactly that way. But they say this is dangerous to our democracy. No, it's not. It's vital to our democracy that an individual, any individual, be free to share thoughts, views, and opinions, especially when they run counter. That's the litmus test for free speech. Can you share thoughts, views, opinions, ideas that are unpopular? And I mean, I could go on and on. I've already gone on for 22 minutes. So now you have a platform like YouTube, which engages in censorship, and this I can share. I can share content published to a censored forum, to a censored platform. But to a platform, if it's coming from a platform like Bit that doesn't censor, well, then that's deemed news. And I believe I've expressed this opinion before, but it's one I've held from the start. We have this adversarial relationship being set up between big tech, between Meta or Meta, however you want to pronounce it, Facebook and Google, and the Canadian government. We have this adversarial relationship that's being promoted, that the Canadian government is trying to dictate to big tech. And frankly, I believe they're working in concert. I believe this is theater. It's being presented to us as a conflict, but I think they're in lockstep agreement. And this is big tech is helping the Canadian government in this case ensure that Canadians are restricted from being exposed to thoughts, views, and opinions that run counter to the narrative. You'll still be able to do it, but it becomes more difficult. And groupthink is something that's very hard to overcome. When everyone thinks one thing, to hold a counter view, you're subject potentially even to violence, but you're certainly subject to shunning, derision, slander, because you hold the wrong view. And this gets into, and Dr. Day goes into this heavily, is this idea that in terms of faith, the Christian faith, and this idea of an intermediary. I think I'm unfair. I don't like expressing someone else's opinions. I don't like surmising other people's opinions because I'm always afraid I'm going to get something wrong, and I don't want to disrespect another individual's opinion. But I think I am fairly safe ground in saying that Dr. Day believes that the relationship between the individual and God, as mediated by Christ brings us into relationship with God. And that's all you need. Yourself, Jesus, God. You don't need a church, is her opinion. And I'm still working through it. I enjoyed our discussion. And I think if I was to criticize her point of view in a polite, in a respectful fashion, I think there are degrees to which I think there are churches that are more controlling and more political. And then I think there are churches that are better. Because we live in, and we touched on this during our talk, we live in a post-Christian world. We live in a post-truth world. Science has been weaponized. They stick the label of science on things that have nothing to do with science, that are purely political. When we talk about efficiency, well, they're 95% effective and will provide long-lasting, robust, sterilizing immunity to an infection. Oh, very good. That's what the science says. Well, that was a prediction that ended up being wrong. 95%, 75%, 50%. Well, they won't stop infection, but we've all seen the progression. What the science, what the politics predicted was wrong. But it was given a branding. It was branded as being scientific. And the ability to speak out about this and the ability to share, to counter what ends up being a political message and not a science-based message, and the ability to counter it and the ability to express opinions that run contrary to it is vital to a healthy and functioning democracy. And I'm sadly here to tell you that democracy as we have known it, and I mean, this started a long time ago. I'll keep going for a bit more because I was thinking of doing a video over the last couple of days since my last one. And I thought I would talk about censorship. I was going to talk about conspiracy theories and this notion that conspiracy theories are garbage and you should totally disregard them. Well, the simple fact of the matter is that everybody, whether left or right, everyone is a conspiracy theorist. When Donald Trump was elected president in the United States in the year 2016, that was a conspiracy. He colluded with the Russians who had a P-tape on him, and there was all this left-wing conspiracy. Likewise, when George Walker Bush was elected president in 2000, again, there was a conspiracy theory as to how he was able to steal the White House. It was not a legitimate election, according to the left. And then when Trump won, again, a conspiracy theory. But then Trump, when he lost in 2020, put out his own conspiracy theory that there had been fraud and whatever, voter suppression, nefarious actions taken by, and it's a conspiracy theory. So we have conspiracy theories all over the map. I mean, I think most people now question the official narrative that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, that from some book depository with a bolt action rifle, that he got off the shots that killed John F. Kennedy. And I think a large percentage of the population views that as bunk. There's no way. I bet you if you were to ask most Americans or Canadians who are familiar with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, if you ask them, was that a criminal conspiracy, they would say no, it was John Wilkes Booth. He shot Lincoln in the Ford Theater, jumped down from his private box onto the stage and tried to escape, and that he was a lone nut bar. But if you do some reading on history, you'll see that was a conspiracy. I think 8 people ended up being hung. They hanged or hung. Love the English language. They executed 7 or 8 individuals in relation to that criminal conspiracy. Powerful, wealthy, elite interests conspire. What a shock. And conspiracy doesn't have to be illegal. Anyone who's been involved in a surprise party has conspired to deceive the birthday boy or girl. Oh, we're taking you to a restaurant, just the 2 of us, but you lie to them and you don't tell them that there are 25, 30, 50, 100 people waiting to all yell surprise. You're conspiring. Yeah. Conspiring simply means 2 or more people acting in concert to deceive. Criminal conspiracy is when that deception involves something illegal. And criminal conspiracy is one of, if not the most commonly laid charges in the criminal justice system. Conspiracies happen. And the notion that wealthy, powerful interests wouldn't conspire, of course they're going to conspire. And what's interesting is what gets labeled as conspiracy theory is, it's not, when you look at the World Economic Forum and the videos they themselves put out, they're open about it. Yuval Noah Harari, who is the top advisor to the founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, he's got tons of videos. You can see it. He speaks about it openly, the fact that we are entering the era of the surveillance state and that human beings are now hackable, can hack into human beings, surveillance under the skin, and all this stuff. And it's talked about openly. But then if you bring it up with friends, family, colleagues, whatever, neighbors, well, that's a conspiracy theory. No, it's right out there in the open. You don't even have to, this is not happening behind. That's what they're allowing out publicly. What's being discussed behind closed doors is open for speculation. But we have enough to go on simply by what's being put out into the public square. So I've rambled on long enough, a little over half an hour. This channel, my channel, it's not monetized. I don't do this. Truth does matter. I have a statement of faith. When we talk about God, God is such a limiting word. I've talked about it before. Moses went before the burning bush and said, wanted a name. What is your name? When I go to the children of Israel, to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and they asked me for a name. What name shall I give them? And the answer he simply got from the burning bush was, I am. I am that I am. God was basically saying, you're not putting me in a box. You're not going to limit me. But so we have all these descriptions for what God is. God is all seeing, all knowing, all wise, all compassionate, all loving, all this, all that, all this. One of the things, one of those definitions for me is all truth. I see God as being the embodiment of truth. It's reality. God is reality. God is the fabric of reality. And God's enemy, Satan, distorts reality. Wants day to be night, night to be day. Wants boys to be girls and girls to be boys. And wants to alter the fabric of reality. And so truth matters, and it doesn't have a price tag on it. And I'm not contending that which I put out is, I'm trying to find it. You know, and in my quest, for lack of a better word, in my journey is seeking truth. And I'm sure I've made mistakes, and I'm sure I'm making, you know, there are mistakes that I'm making right now, but I consider myself a struggling Christian, but the struggle is worth it. Anyway, as I said, completely unscripted, but the point I was trying to make is this channel, not monetized. I hope there are no ads going up, because if there are, I'm not getting anything from it. So if you do like and subscribe and do all that stuff, it does help me get my voice out, because I think that when people look at a channel and they see, oh, it's got 100 subscribers, man, maybe I will. Maybe this guy has something to say. If they see 2, they'll go, I'm not listening. So the more I get, the better. And I think it helps extend my reach. I hope this video doesn't get taken down. I haven't said anything. I haven't asserted anything. I haven't presented anything as, you know, news. But I think we're going to see more and more censorship coming down. And if you can, I would suggest, I found Dr. Day compelling. You can find lots of interviews that she's done. Just go to her website. Some of them are on YouTube. I was just listening to one, as I said, I hadn't heard her before. She did one all the way back in December of 2020, talking about what was happening at that time. And if you'll remember, we were in lockdowns and everything else. I mean, the insanity that we lived through for 2 + 3 years, 3 or so years. And even though now people think that things have returned to normal, I have to wonder. And anyway, I'll be doing another one, but another video Sunday at the latest. I know it's late now, or very early in the morning. I've been burning it at both ends, so to speak, and I've been crashing out, having dinner, crashing, and then waking up early with thoughts going through my head. And then I went to check out that video and saw, wow, down the memory hole already. I don't think the video stayed up more than 12 hours. You can watch it on Bit or perhaps some other alternative channel. God bless. Talk to you later. I see I had one person watching. Anytime anyone's watching, I love engagement, but it's okay if you don't want to either. So we will talk to you later. Good night.